We're all trying to communicate now through the physical disconnects. And a lot of you are now interested in using video to help you make that communication possible. And I think that's great. So what I want to do is just kind of help you along with some tips and ways to understand what can make video communication more successful. So the first thing I want you to think about is actually your persona, your character. So that could be the archetype or the brand persona you represent as either your company or your organization. Now, if you're going to be making videos yourself, you're probably going to be doing something similar to what I'm doing. You're going to be on camera, speaking to camera, and talking about how your company did this or that, preferably through a story. But we'll talk about more of about that later. Right now, I just want you to think about the character you're going to represent, the archetype you're going to represent, the brand persona you're going to represent. And this is important because the audience, your target demographic, the people who are watching you, that's us, the people, we connect to archetypes and brand personas. We recognize the different type of figures we've seen in stories before and what categories they fall under. So for instance, if you're kind of like a, shoot from the hip type figure who, goes against the grain and is going to try and pull your customers towards a method or success that everybody else thinks that's not the way to do it, well, you're quite clearly kind of the rebel. And rebels in storytelling and movies, well, one of the more famous ones I can think of right away is Han Solo, because he doesn't care about any of that forced mumbo jumbo. He says he's looking out for himself, but he also knows how to get things done and do it in his own unique way. Now, creating your brand persona, creating your archetype, it also helps you maintain consistency, because now you know what voice to speak from, who you are and what are your methods of communication, what makes sense and what fits with who you are. So for instance, us, at Wild Meat Video Marketing, and that is what I'm representing right now, we have to think about, okay, what is our brand persona? And it's not just about what you would like to be, it's like who you honestly are. So maybe I would like to think of us as, the sage, presenting wisdom from upon high. We have all the knowledge and we have all the answers. But truth be told, we probably fit more closely with the character of the magician. The character who, yes, has knowledge and wisdom, but also has kind of the secrets, the magic to help others get there as well, because we get into the fray, we're more active. So we're not the Oracle in the Matrix, the one who just tells Neo, no, not this, yes, that. We're more like Morpheus in the Matrix, because we get into the fights, but we're also helping pull people along and helping them get that success as well. So think about that, think about who your brand persona is, what archetypes you could fit under, and I'll throw up some links to help you look at more information about that as well. So what is storytelling? Okay, well, let me give you an example, through a story. So about 2 months ago, Wild Meat Video Marketing was ready to work with clients to launch campaigns, to get video productions going, to run marketing campaigns. And we were talking to a few people and it was getting so close for it to happen. It was really exciting. Then, of course, the same thing that happened to us happened to everybody. The pandemic broke out, it hit the globe, and everything got shut down. The situation was pretty dire. And that meant that the clients we were just about to work with wanted to take a step back. Things were uncertain, finances were uncertain. What are we going to do next? They didn't know, and honestly, I didn't know. What am I going to do next? Do I wait this out? What can I do to help others right now as well? Help them so that, I can do something and feel useful, but also that these clients will continue to exist once they're ready, that they can sustain themselves during this time. But I don't know, I wasn't sure. Am I the one who can do that from a distance? Do I have the understanding, the techniques, the method to make this happen? But eventually I realized that yes, there are things that I understand, that I know about video making, about storytelling, about communication, that I can put down and give to others so they can use it themselves. And that is what I'm doing right now. By telling this to the camera, making these videos, we're putting it out there so others can learn from it and take these techniques and apply it to themselves. And then if we fast forward into the future a bit, you're watching this right now, you're learning from it, you're learning about storytelling, and of course you're making now your own videos, communicating to others how they can use emotion and transformation to convey their message. And since this is a happy ending, it works like gangbusters. Everything works out well. People are engaging with your content. And I said it's a happy ending. You remembered that I was the one who helped you along. So you're bursting down my door to make me help you furthermore with it. So right there, that was an example of me conveying a message, conveying information, but putting it through the structure of a story so that you felt it more. And hopefully that was effective. And what I used right there is something that's similar to the 5-act structure, which I'll throw up right here. Now you're looking at Freytag's pyramid, a visual representation of the 5-act structure, broken down by exposition, inciting incident, rising action, climax, leading to the falling action, resolution, and denouement. I go more into this, exactly what each element is, in another video that explores storytelling more thoroughly, and using the movie Die Hard as an example. You can find a link to that below. So the point of all this is the next time you put the camera on yourself, think about how can you convey your message or information in a story structure? How can you allow the people who are watching you to be transformed by what you're sharing? Not just be informed, but actually get the information in a way that feels emotional and transformative. A lot of you are looking towards video as a method of communication. And it's that word communication I want to talk about, because it's about who you're trying to communicate with that really matters. So when you're making a video, well, when I make a video, I think about who I'm trying to talk to and what I'm trying to get from them, because there is an element of that in play. And the reason I can be so straightforward about what I'm saying is because I know that my audience likes to be spoken to sincerely and straightforward and honestly. And then my audience, and I think about this a lot, the persona I have in mind of the people watching these videos are probably people within the Saas industry, software service companies. That's why I say Saas, because I stumble on software as service companies. People who work in IT or tech, in that kind of environments. And you're analytical folk, usually quite intelligent, but also entrepreneurial. And there's an element of just kind of cutting through the bullshit and getting straight to it. So you guys, I know I can speak to this way. And also, I know that if I say the reason I'm sharing this information, the reason I'm communicating these videos is that I genuinely do want to help this industry. I want to help it grow. I want to help it maintain. But also, I want to make sure that it survives during this time and that you remember the lessons you got from me so that you can circle back and connect with me so I can help you later more thoroughly. That is my audience I'm looking at. That's the communication style I'm trying to use. And that is the results I'm hoping for. So this is something you need to consider when you're trying to send out videos. What communication style is most effective? What language would you like to use? And what is the persona of the customers or the audience you're trying to reach? Really think about it, create that persona, and then speak to that person so that your message comes through as precise and as specific as possible. So, okay, I made, the efforts that I think is worth to come across okay on the camera. In that case, I wore a sweater I like and a nice shirt. And yes, my hair is really big and I haven't gotten a haircut in quite a while, but I styled it. And because I'm a creative, I get away with it, right? So these are the elements at play that, just on a very surface level, make a difference when you come across on video. I've been hearing stories about, people who normally meet their lawyer in the office and now suddenly they're on a Zoom meeting and he's wearing a sweatshirt and they're a little taken aback. Maybe that's fine for you, maybe not, but it all makes a difference because we communicate so much in how we look and how we present ourselves and what we wear. And that doesn't mean wearing Gucci or suits. It just means wearing something that looks good and makes you feel comfortable. And that's also the next element, this idea of comfort, this idea of feeling natural. So what I'm doing right now is I'm looking at the camera, I'm looking at the lens directly, but I'm not picturing the camera as a camera. I'm actually kind of seeing a person in this camera. Now I've done this quite a bit, so for me it feels a bit more familiar, but I really do see the camera to some extent as a friend. Now this may be, egocentric or narcissistic, but to some degree the camera is my friend and I can speak to it as someone I know. And hopefully this comes across and makes it feel more friendly and more intimate. And that's also other things to consider, is your tone of voice. How are you speaking to who's there? If you're talking like this and you have like no emotion because you're nervous, it's pretty obvious. And if you're being like way too intimate and too quiet, that can get uncomfortable. So you have to find the balance of what feels right for you. And part of that is, yes, practice. Just doing it a few times over and over until it doesn't feel so weird, until it doesn't feel like a strange thing you're doing anymore. And part of that practice is also, yes, looking back at what you've created and what you've made. And part of the problem there, the awkwardness that you might feel, is we have an idea of how we sound and how we look. And then when we look back, it doesn't quite match that. And the idea we have, it literally can be something like your voice resonance in your head is different than how your voice comes across when recorded. Or when we see ourselves, we're looking at mirrors. And then when we see ourselves on video, it's flipped. This is just a psychological disconnect that we're not used to, and it feels wrong. But the more you do this, the more you look back at yourself, the more comfortable you will be, and the more you can feel familiar with what you're putting out there. And my last tip, try not to use a script. Try not to memorize a stream of lines or dialogue. Instead, just bullet point it, practice it a bit, get a sense of what it is, and then communicate that as best as you can to the camera. That way, it'll feel a lot more natural, a lot more real, a lot more authentic. And if you're presenting information that you should know it, and it'll come across as inauthentic if you're always struggling to find notes or trying to find that cue. Because maybe, hey, you don't really know it that thoroughly then. I know this is a lot to think about, so just to boil it down quite simply, just try to find your comfort level, look at the lens like a friend, and don't memorize too strictly. Keep it loose and keep it familiar, and practice. We're talking about video making and using what you have at your disposal to actually make some videos yourself. And specifically, we're talking here now about production value. So in this situation, now we are filmmakers. We have a DSLR set up on a tripod, set at my eye level to capture this scene in this space. We made sure that we're getting some light coming from outside, but it happens to be raining right now, so it's a bit darker than we would love. But you know what? That's good enough for these purposes. We also have this light right here giving a bit of an accent, giving a bit of a different effect as well to illuminate me a bit more and create more space in the scene. And everything here is production design. The laptop here is mostly a prop. I have some notes, but also it just kind of creates a different element of space, along with these things right here, along with the plants in the back, just giving depth, giving a scene to be in. Now, that might seem like a lot. It might seem like a little, might seem like a lot, but my point is there's different levels of what you can do with these type of choices. So for instance, you right now, think about what you have at your disposal to help record video. Maybe that is just very simply an iPhone or an Android or whatever it is you use, or your webcam on your computer, the same one you've been using for Zoom meetings. So what should you consider when you're recording using your webcam or your smartphone? Well, you can do similar things to what I was doing. Well, I'm going to make sure that the camera is on eye level so that it's not too extreme up high or down below. This creates very different effects and how the audience is looking at your image and how they're perceiving you. So a nice neutral thing to do would be eye level. Another thing to consider is, yes, your background. You don't want something that is too distracting. Now, what does that mean? Maybe you've noticed it the last time you were on a Zoom chat, you kept on spotting what everybody else has in their background. So a messy shelf or laundry that's kind of hanging out, or like a really busy poster or something that keeps people away from looking at you, but looking at the things around you. Just making sure to make those considerations can make a massive difference. And the style you're shooting with can make a big difference. So for instance, me talking to you like this, the camera's locked off, it's set, feels, I would hope, a bit more professional, a bit more high value. Versus if I'm taking my phone and I'm doing it like this, so right now, maybe this feels a bit more intimate, could feel a bit more authentic, but also it could be more confessional. A different kind of a way of communicating. And how I'm holding the phone also makes a big difference. So if I'm all the way down here, it's not very flattering, and also it's a kind of like intense, it's kind of severe. If I'm holding it here, it's closer to my eye level, feels a little bit more neutral, feels a little bit more friendly. And then up here, it's kind of like, hey, look at me, I want to get your attention. Now all these things do give different effects. So these are things to consider when you're making your videos yourself. But really, what matters most is find the camera you have. If it is a smartphone, try and maybe lock it off, set it down somewhere, try and set it to your eye level. Hell, get a selfie stick if you need to, and use it. Use the tools you have to communicate. And just that little bit of effort is going to raise the levels of your videos massively compared to what else is out there. We've been talking about making videos and using our cameras or our phones to make videos. And that kind of leads me to this idea of quality. So that can mean a lot of different things to different people. Some people get really stuck up on, oh, is it HD or not? Or 2K, 4K. My camera can shoot so many pixels and at this resolution. And honestly, our iPhones or our smartphones can at this point. A lot of them shoot at a really high resolution and are pretty sophisticated cameras. But perhaps the element of quality that's most often overlooked is sound quality. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm recording my sound on a lavalier mic that's pinned to my sweater right here. You probably noticed it, and you probably looked past it because it's a relatively familiar thing to see at this point. Now, I happen to be recording it to a sound recording device I have that's in this drawer, but this same microphone can plug directly into my smartphone and record the sound from the mic into the phone. And for most of you, that's probably what you'll want, because you're not going to want to edit and sync sound and do techniques that might feel a little bit intimidating. So looking for a simple lavalier mic that you can connect into your smartphone directly can do massive things for how you're perceived on camera. Because if people can hear you more clearly, if they're not straining, it doesn't sound muffled, it makes a big difference. Just in the way that right now what you're hearing is sound recorded directly through the DSLR. And this again is the sound as it's recorded on my lavalier mic. And you definitely don't have to overspend on it. I happened to get this one really cheap. I honestly think it was like $20 or $30. But I got that at the time with a special deal through some web shop thing. But look for prices around that range. Don't start splurging for 60 plus euro mics necessarily just yet. You don't need it. You just need something that makes you sound more clear. And then maybe the next thing to consider is, and I do consider this an element of quality, is how the video looks where it's on, what platform it's playing on. So considering a thumbnail, to get people's attention to click on it, that matters. And there's a lot of examples out there of what an effective thumbnail can be. Something that just grabs people's attention, lets them know a little bit what they can be looking for. And also, we did talk about sound a lot, but honestly, a lot of people, at first, they watch things on mute. So you might want to consider having subtitles or captions on your videos. Now, I have a tutorial video that goes through how you can do that completely for free, but you might want to look at some options online where you can just upload your video, it auto-generates subtitles and puts them on there for you. And if I had to recommend one, it probably is Veed.io. And I do that because, well, they're friendly guys. I was chatting with them a bit on different groups, and I just like what they're about and how they're trying to make it work for people who don't necessarily have all the technical understanding. And they have a free program, so you can just use it with a watermark. It'll be maybe at a little bit lower resolution, but honestly, for most of your needs, they'll probably be just fine. So those are the little things to consider when you're thinking about the quality of your videos, and I hope that will encourage you to make that little bit of effort, especially when it comes to the sound. and we're now talking about the points of like, okay, we've been making our videos, what do we do with them? So we're discussing distribution. What platforms are we going to place them on, and how do we get the most out of that? So there's a lot of different techniques on making sure that your video content can be as effective as possible. But what I want to do right now is just parlay some information of things you can do on your own, easily, without a lot of investment except for your time. So in this case, what I've been doing has been sitting behind this desk in my apartment, and I've shot, including this one, it's going to be 8 videos pretty much in one go. Then I'm going to slice up all these little videos so that I have 8 videos to put online on LinkedIn, because that's where I know my audience is. I'm trying to reach, the software as a service business, help them with their communication, help them with their video styles. And I know that most of my audience is on LinkedIn, and they want little chunks. They don't want to spend 20 minutes watching everything in one go. They want like little bits of information that can help them along. And hey, if you are interested, if this works for you, you can always go to the link and get the full version, which is on YouTube. And YouTube at this point is much more about the full thing, all the information in one go. Videos are now ranging to 10, 20, 30 minutes long because people are searching exactly what they want. They're engaged with the subscribers they like, and they're willing to sit there and engage with all the content. Think about your podcast. You're listening to hours, maybe even 2 hours for some, because you care about the information and you want to hear everything there is. So that's like, a little bit different things to consider. And then of course is how are you going to parse it out? So my strategy is going to be, I'm going to release 2 videos a week. And in between that time, I'm also going to post, content that I've either written or that I found that I think is worthwhile that bolsters everything I'm saying in this video as well. And along with the videos I'm posting online, I'm also including kind of roughly the same information that's in the video in a text form. Maybe a bit more abbreviated, but it's going to be there so that those who are more interested in reading it can read it. And then the video can embolden the information as well, put it out there in a different strategy. All this to use as much of what I've made to be as effective as possible. So these are all the things you should consider when you're making your content. How often do you want to release it? Who are you going to release it for? What platform do you want to put it on? Or what are you willing to invest behind it so that you can make sure you use the most of the content you make in your video formats? Hey there, we've been talking about using video to communicate, and most of what I've been talking about kind of relates to your broader communication. Videos that you'd put online for everybody to see so that they will engage with it. And right now I want to talk about something else, which is the effectiveness of using video to communicate to just one person or just a few people. And I use this all the time myself. And honestly, the way I do that, I don't set up all of this. I set up my webcam on my computer. I speak into it, I talk to the person directly, and I communicate what I'm about, what they're about, and how I can possibly help them. And I've noticed how effective it is because it feels really personalized, it feels authentic, and the reason it feels personalized and authentic is because it is. I'm not automating it, I'm not faking it. I'm generally taking the time to look into who they are as a person, as a company. I'm taking the time to record that message to them. And at first, this might take you a little longer, but once you do it a few times, it'll feel a lot more natural and a lot more easy to do. And it is work. It does take a little bit out of you. So you have to select the people you're trying to communicate with effectively. But the power of this personal video outreach is immense. People really feel spoken to. And it's so much more different than if you just wrote out your message and go, hey, Michael, blah, 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 blah. If you look into the camera and say, hey, Michael. My name is Daniel Hillel-Tuch, and I help business-to-business SaaS companies find more monthly recurring revenue through video marketing campaigns. So I'm really glad we connected. First of all, let's talk about what's going on. It's a bit of a strange time, right? So the reason I am glad that we connected, because I've been looking at the company, and I see a pretty noble kind of mission, actually, in that you're trying to help corporations and companies. So what you saw right there, that's the difference between the quality you see on a DSLR versus what you see in my webcam. But there's a different element at play here. We're just trying to reach people individually. So just doing that, just taking the time in, just 6 to 10 minutes per person, it can make a big impact and can really do something different for how you're communicating with the people you're trying to reach.